Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hey, welcome. It's good to hear from everyone. My name is Larry. I think we're having a few technical difficulties. We're working through that. Last week, we spoke a little bit about mental health. This week, we're going to dive. Oh, sorry. Let me go a little closer here. This week, we're going to dive into what we call cognitive distortions. And so, anyway, just to kind of introduce myself, my name is Larry Mabry. I'm a life coach, and this time of year, typically, a lot of individuals struggle with mental health as the days get a little bit shorter and it gets a little bit darker. We want to make sure that we accommodate those individuals with the mental health support. So today we're going to talk about cognitive distortions. And what are cognitive distortions, you may ask? Well, cognitive distortions are patterns of thinking that can lead to negative emotions and behaviors. They are common mental traps that people fall into, and they can contribute to issues like anxiety, depression, and relationship problems. We're going to explore the cognitive distortions. And you may say, well, okay, where do we get these distortions from? Well, we can get these distortions from family upbringing. If we grow up in a situation where, parents have certain types of thought patterns, we can kind of take that on. Today, we're just going to look at 10 of those cognitive distortions. Okay. The first one we're going to look into is called all or nothing thinking, or black or white thinking. And when we have all or nothing type thinking, or black or white thinking, this distortion involves seeing things in extreme situations or terms with no middle ground. So basically black or white situations. People engage in this distortion when they view a situation as all good or all bad with no room for nuance or error. Well, let me give an example. So for example, let's say you have a student who receives A- on their exam and they think, you know what, I'm a total failure. I should have aced it. This person disregards the fact that A- is still a good grade. So if you're in a situation where you put a lot of pressure on yourself, maybe you grew up in a family where, you have to be the winner in every situation, but people forget that you also have to begin in a situation too. So that's all or nothing thinking. The second cognitive distortion that people have is called catastrophizing, or magnification, or minimization. And basically, catastrophizing involves blowing things out of proportion or minimizing the significance of positive events. This distortion often leads to irrational fears or exaggerated negative outcomes. And let me give an example. Let's say that someone who's running late for work due to traffic jam, they may think, oh man, I'm going to lose my job over this. I'm a complete failure. But in reality, just being late for that particular situation may not cause a job loss. Okay. So basically blowing things out of proportion or minimizing things out of proportion. Okay. The next one, overgeneralization. When we have overgeneralization, basically is when people draw broad conclusions based on limited evidence or a single negative experience. For example, after breakup, someone might think, I'll never love again. I'm unlovable. And this conclusion is based on one failed relationship, and they ignore the possibility of future positive experiences. Now, you may think, okay, well, why is he talking about these things? Well, a lot of times we have these thought patterns and we go into relationships and we wonder why they don't work. Well, it's important to understand that these thoughts can actually be changed, or at least noticed, so that we can re-engineer these thoughts to have higher thoughts, or thoughts that are more neutral, so we don't have negative thoughts of ourselves. Okay, moving on. Filtering, or we call it selective abstraction. Filtering involves focusing solely on the negative aspects of a situation and filtering out all the positive elements. So, for example, if someone receives a glowing performance review, but they dwell only on the one criticism regarding that review, they're filtering out the praise and fixating on the negative feedback. So, you may have had a situation where you talk to somebody and you're like, "Hey, that's pretty good." You give them three positive things and one thing they say, "Well, you could have worked on that," and they kind of focus on that. That's filtering. All right, let's go to the next one. Mind reading. This distortion occurs when people assume they know what others are thinking, often in a negative or critical way, without any concrete evidence. I'll give an example. If someone's at a party and they think people are probably thinking I'm boring, they are mind reading without actually getting any actual feedback or evidence. I've been in that situation before. Okay, moving on. Personalization. All right, personalization is when individuals take responsibility for events that are beyond their control, blaming themselves for external circumstances. So, for example, if a friend cancels plans and you think it must be because they don't like me, you're personalizing that situation without considering the other possibilities. Now, you may think, oh, you know what? As he's going through some of these things, I'm noticing that I have these thoughts. If you have those thoughts, don't judge them. Just notice them and recognize them, but don't judge them. And when later on, when we get through, we'll talk about how to reframe these particular thoughts. Okay, moving on to the next one. Should statements. Should statements involve imposing rigid or unrealistic demands on yourself or others, leading to feelings of guilt, frustration, or resentment. For example, I should be perfect at everything I do. Or this can lead to constant self-criticism and disappointment when perfection is unattainable. Okay, the next one. Emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is when people believe their feelings reflect objective reality. They think that if they feel a certain way, it must be true. So, for example, I feel anxious, so there must be something truly dangerous happening. This ignores the fact that anxiety can sometimes be irrational or based on unfounded fears. Okay. Now we're moving on to labeling and mislabeling. This distortion involves attaching negative labels to someone or excuse me, to oneself or others based on basic or past mistakes or behavior, which can reinforce negative self-identity. For example, after making a mistake at work, someone might say, I'm a complete failure and I always mess things up. This mislabeling reinforces a negative self-image. Okay, the next one. Discounting the positive. During this cognitive distortion, basically, it involves minimizing or dismissing positive experiences, often by attributing them to external factors or luck. For example, if someone receives a compliment on their appearance and responds with, they're just saying that just to be polite, they're discounting the positive feedback. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go through all 10 that we kind of covered today. All or nothing thinking, or black or white thinking, which is basically viewing situations in extremes, all or nothing type of perspectives, black or white. The second one is catastrophizing or magnification, exaggerating things, putting them out of proportion. We have overgeneralization, basically drawing broad conclusions on situations. We have filtering or selective abstraction, which is basically focusing solely on the negative aspects of things. Mind reading, well, basically you're trying to read someone's mind, assuming what's going on. Personalization, basically taking undue responsibility for extreme events and blaming things on beyond your control. Should statements, basically imposing rigid or unrealistic demands on yourself or others. Or emotional reasoning, where you're believing that your feelings accurately reflect that particular situation objectively when it's not. Labeling and mislabeling, when you attach a negative label to yourself or others based on past experiences. And the last one, discounting the positive, when you basically minimize some things that people say towards you. Okay. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do right now is I notice a few people commented on the, looks like Facebook. Great. Someone just said, how's it going? I'm doing well. I want to say doing well. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, cool. All right. So I actually spoke to some individuals here at Rainier Avenue World, and we were having a conversation about possibly having a talk show type style where we present questions to the community. And I'm curious to see, what you guys kind of feel. So if you want to comment and kind of share your perspective as far as, if we bring some things to the forefront and kind of have a call type session where you guys call in and kind of express what you think. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes if you want to comment to share on that. Okay, doing well. Cool. I see a few people there. All right, cool. Appreciate you guys reaching out. Also, too, at this time, I wanted to shout out to Rainier Avenue World, Rainier Avenue Radio World. I appreciate them doing what they can to support local radio, as well as allowing my podcast radio right now just to communicate to people. So I appreciate that, and wanted to say my appreciation to them for that. Okay. Also, too, now sometimes when people have these cognitive distortions, they may ask, okay, so how do we get through these situations? Well, what I recommend is to get a notebook when you notice that you're having these distortions. As I mentioned, those particular ones, you may have noticed a couple that you thought about to yourself. And again, you don't want to judge it. It's just, it is what it is. But what we can do is kind of change it. And I would get a notebook out. And as you notice, as you go throughout your day, maybe jot down. Like if you notice that you're reading someone's mind or you're trying to mind read a situation, maybe write it down. In that situation, write it down. And then once you write it down, when you're with yourself, you can reflect on that situation and think about, okay, how can I reframe? And when we say reframe, basically what we mean is we want to handle it a little bit different way. Okay. So for mind reading in a situation, we want to reframe it. We might want to step back and say, okay, could there be another situation or another way we can handle the situation? Yes. Okay, great. What are some different ways that we can handle that situation? And these could be questions that you write down in your notes. Are there other individuals that may handle this situation different? We could write that down. Are there other situations similar situations that we had that we handled different? Because sometimes it could just be that day. Okay. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because as we notice that we have these types of thoughts and we start to catch them, then we can start to change them. And as we change them, then we actually start to create a different type of reality in our life. Okay. All right. Cool. Also, I want to touch base too. In our last episode, I talked a little bit about mental health. And for those individuals who joined us, I know we had someone join us from Canada as well as I believe the Philippines. So I'm not sure if they're here today, but want to say shout out to them. I noticed that I kind of ran out of time. So what I wanted to do in this particular episode is kind of make sure I have some concise information so I can go a little bit deeper and kind of see if we can get some comments to see if people are interested in possibly maybe some topics that you want us to talk about. So if you're curious to see, or if you want to comment as far as what are some things that you would like to hear, you could write that down and we can note that as well. Some people talked about depression. Maybe some people talked about how to get through depression. Some individuals talked about, okay, how do you deal with relationships? How do you deal with conflict resolution? Basically, if you're having a conflict with either a mate or a family member, how do you work through that? How do you deal with anger? We talked a little bit about that last week. During the school year, I know I have certain clients that have children and just dealing with the family and also we're rolling into Thanksgiving. So during that time of year, sometimes that could be stressful dealing with different family members and that type of thing, right? So go ahead and if you want, you can comment and add what would you like to see on the next episode. Okay, cool, no problem. All right, so I want to give a situation. So If you have these cognitive distortions, does that mean that you don't understand certain things or that you're thinking bad? No, it does not. We all basically can have certain types of thoughts that are a little bit off. Raise your hand if you watch TV. Some people watch TV or you listen to certain things. And a lot of times we get influenced by those things. We might have certain role models that we pick up on and we want to emulate those particular people. We can have certain cognitive distortions from that. I'll give you an example. So a lot of times if they have commercials, car commercials, for example, and they show car commercials, and you as an individual may look at the car and say, oh man, I really want that car. Right? So you work hard, you do what you can, and then you get that car. Beautiful. Now it's cool to work hard to acquire certain things. But sometimes what happens is people, they put their value on getting the car as opposed to valuing themselves. So that's where there can be some gray areas with the cognitive distortions. So it doesn't mean you want to work hard. Of course you do. However, sometimes, because we know how it is out here, sometimes we can work so hard to the point where we kind of lose track of ourselves. So that's why mental health is very, very important. Okay. Okay. All right. No worries. So now I want to give a shout out again to Rainier Avenue Radio World for their support of local radio. Also, too, before we still have some time, but I want to remind everyone tomorrow is election day, and election results will be special tomorrow at 7 p.m. So make sure you guys keep that in mind. Again, tomorrow is election day, and election results special tomorrow will be at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So just want to put that out there to remind people. So go out there and vote. Okay, moving on. All right, now, in my practice, I noticed that as I talk to a lot of my clients, we go through these cognitive distortions, and a lot of them are surprised. They're like, wow, I didn't realize I thought this. So as I kind of went through this, you may have noticed more than one, and that's okay. As you recognize these things, you can work on them, because if you didn't know, you didn't really know what to do. So as I said before, you basically would get a notebook, kind of write them down, kind of reframe them. If you feel like you need more support, you can reach out to me. You could probably find me. I'm the Maassen Group. You can reach out to school, which is South King Emotional Wellness League, and reach out. And my name is Larry Mabry. If you need some support, we also have other individuals who can support you as well. If you don't feel it's a good fit, that's fine as well. And we could talk more further about that for you personally. Okay. But I've had some individuals ask me, okay, so why are we doing this for men's mental health? And again, like I said last week, when I came here from Michigan, we talked a little bit about, well, I met a lot of individuals. I got here about 3 years ago, and we talked about the Seattle freeze. And for those individuals who don't know, basically it's when you meet individuals from the West Coast, they're really cool. Like I got love for a lot of people here, but I noticed that there's this ominous type of feeling when you kind of get to know people, because the culture is a little bit different. And I want to say I felt that like the first year. And as I kind of got to know people, I was like, okay, cool. But I also realized that there's a lot of people out here needing some support, want to talk to people. So if you're one of those individuals, feel free to reach out, because we're here to help you out. Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So I see a couple comments. Still looking here. Okay, cool. Let me go through it again. So for those individuals who are chimed in, the question I asked was, what are some things that you would like to see if we were to have it or open it up to like a question answer type of setup? What are some questions that you would like to see us talk about for men's mental health or mental health in general? Feel free to reach out. You can write that down, or if you want to comment, we like to have a little bit more interactivity with the community and kind of focus on some of those issues. I know one of the issues that a couple of my clients have talked about is self-esteem, which, that's a big one, especially if you're going through a tough time in a relationship, or if you don't see the sun a lot, you could feel some kind of way. And normally that happens when you go up and down. And the question I have for people is, who is your Jedi? Who is your Jedi council? And you may say, Jedi council, what are you talking about? Well, for those people that watch Star Wars, right? Luke had a Jedi council, and basically these are organizations or people around you that help you become a better you, right? And you may have a personal trainer, you may have a yoga instructor, you may have a coach, you may have a particular instructor, weight fitness instructor, things of that nature. But who's helping you on your mental, right? So think about your Jedi council and those individuals you can have around you to kind of help you become the best person you can become, right? They kind of bring balance to the force, right? Because we all are good at certain things, but as we have a Jedi council, they kind of help us showcase other skills that we may not have thought about, right? And it goes back to what I said before about mental health and having those people around you to help bring you up. Okay. So when I came here, I definitely connected with some people that are my Jedi council, and I like to be yours if you're looking to kind of align yourself with the force, so to speak. Okay. All right, cool. Okay. One other question that came to mind too was, okay, how do we deal with mental health? And that's a good question. The biggest answer to that would be balance as much as possible, making sure that if you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable, you need to tell people no. It's okay to tell them no if you're taking care of yourself. And some people say, well, how do you know that? Well, sometimes there's like a little voice inside that you feel, but you kind of go against. Practice taking care of that little voice. And we like to call that, I'll call that little Larry, or the inner child, right? Listen to the little voice and start to value that little voice, right? You got to eat the extra nachos or something, and something saying, no, don't do it. And you push past it. Listen to the little voice and say, okay, I'm going to honor the little voice and take care of that, right? Or if you're in a situation where maybe someone cut you down as far as you got a salary and you maybe want a couple thousand more in a salary, and they're saying, well, we can only do this, but you realize it really won't be beneficial for your family, but you say yes, but you really mean no. Start to honor your little voice, your inner voice, and just say no. Okay. And move past it. Okay. All right. One more thing. So as we get to a point where we're wrapping it up, a couple more things I want to bring out. Want to remind you guys again, tomorrow is election day, and the election results special tomorrow is going to be at 7 p.m. So make sure you guys go out and vote. Again, tomorrow's election day, and the election results special will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. So make sure you guys go out and vote. Okay? All right, cool. Okay. One more thing. I want to make sure I thank Rainier Avenue Radio World for their support of local radio. And also want to put a couple shout outs to a couple individuals who I met who kind of gave me a good idea. You two gentlemen know who you are. So I want to say thank you very much. And also too, again, for those individuals that came a little late, I proposed a question. And the question was, if we turn this particular mental health show to like a question answer type of format and have people call in, what are some things that you guys will be interested in talking about? So I see a few things and a few answers in the comments. Feel free to reach out and voice out what you think. Do you think mental health is important in Seattle? I'm curious to see your thoughts. What are some things you could do to support mental health? What are some things you could do to support yourself? Okay. Self-care is important. So if you need some time, make sure you take the time. Try to find somebody in your Jedi Council. Again, I spoke about that, and that's basically a support system that you have to kind of help make sure that you're balanced. That's very vital for you to grow and to be the best person that you could be. If you have some things that you need to express, make sure you have somebody that you can talk to that's open, honest, that could give you constructive feedback in a real supportive way. And if you're looking for somebody, you can feel free to reach out to us here at school or myself at the Maassen Group. Okay. All right. So as we wrap it up, I want to talk about a couple things, and then we should be wrapping it up here. Okay. So the next individual that'll be coming on after me is called Better Together and Living Powerfully. So make sure you guys give some support to that particular radio station. Again, Better Together and Living Powerfully should be coming on a little bit after me, excuse me, from 6 to 7 on Mondays. All right. So before we wrap it up, just want to say appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And one little caveat I want to talk about too before I close it out. With emotional reasoning, when I talked about that earlier with the cognitive distortion, it's important to make sure you balance the emotions you have within yourself first. And if you need help, feel free to reach out, because I know sometimes that could be tough, especially we as men, to discuss that. But it's okay to have it, and make sure you have somebody who can support you with that. Okay. Also, too, as far as the communication we spoke about earlier with people calling in, I was thinking about calling it Mabry's Moment, where people can call in and basically communicate what they thought, and we can kind of address a couple things. I feel like that will really be beneficial to the community. You guys have different names or things that you think. I'm open to that. So feel free to kind of write your comments in, or if you want to write a little bit later when we're done today, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, we want to again thank Rainier Avenue Radio World for their support, and we'll see you guys next week, where we'll be talking about emotional intelligence.